You're probably asking yourself, what's a guy with a collar doing here at a lean startup conference? And I would probably be asking the same question about 6 months ago. I didn't know anything about lean 6 months ago. But then my son, who is a startup, CEO of a tech startup out in San Francisco, was at an actual lean conference for lean startups. And somebody asked, has anybody ever tried this at churches? And he texted back, says, well, I don't think my dad's read the book yet, but he's been doing this for 18 years. So that's what I'm here to talk about today. So lean before lean was cool. You've probably heard a few of these things. The things that lean has done for us has been to kind of give us a language to be able to talk about some of the things that we were kind of doing by hook or crook anyway, just trying to figure out on our own. Somebody asked me on the way in, I'm still learning, somebody asked me on the way in here, what is our basic minimum viable product? And I realized I hadn't answered that yet. We've got a lot of minimal viable products along the way, but the minimal viable product we have is a minimum viable belief. We decided that what was keeping churches from growing these days was that churches had too many. And so what we did when we started ours was say, what's the core? And we wanted to provide a place where people could experience and be transformed by God's love. That's our minimum viable product. So 20 years ago, I left a consulting practice and became an Episcopal priest. It was my first solo call, God's joke, I guess, sent me to start a new church. The Diocese of Washington, the Episcopal Diocese of Washington, hadn't done one in 40 years. They'd actually tried a few and they flopped. There were no experts. And churches are floundering everywhere, anywhere, so we didn't know what we were doing. And that was actually not such a bad thing. We had a plethora of assumptions. We had very little real knowledge. We had the blessing of our diocese, sort of, go out there and see what you can do. Enough funding to hang ourselves and enough freedom to do it, so we went out there and we were so naive. But this turned out to be a good thing. The naivete turned out to be a very good thing. Because, as one person once said, anything's possible when you don't know what you're talking about. So this set us on a path of creative thievery. And what we did was we started stealing from startups. We would appropriate. This is going to look familiar to you. We would appropriate, we would apply, we would assess, we would adapt, and we would either chuck it or move on, and tweak it and go. So, in effect, we realized, hey, we were a startup. Why don't we act like one? So, 5 areas, and I probably won't be able to talk about all of them, but translating, kind of putting these together in one basket was what Lean helped us to do. So, the 5 areas, one is entrepreneurial culture. How many church leaders does it take to change a light bulb? Well, actually, only 1 to change the light bulb, but it takes another 4 to talk about how great the old one was. So, what we're talking about doing is making a difference, making a distinction between tradition and traditionalism. Tradition is good. Tradition is time-tested learning. But when you stop testing, then you stop worshiping tradition. And that kills you and turns you into a fossil. So what we were trying to do is we realized we couldn't afford traditionalism. We wanted to move to a vision-driven culture. We wanted to use our tradition as a way to kind of be a container for our experiments. In other words, the tradition is kind of holding what's good. And so let's use that to try to get to do new things to get to the same goal. And for us, we have always said to ourselves, failure is not an option. It comes as standard equipment. And so we might as well learn from it. So one of the things that we had to do right away was begin to test our assumptions. We started to go from the what, which for us was our ministries and programs, to the how, which was our organization and processes, and the why, our reason to exist. And we've always said to ourselves, if we can't get to why, it's okay, let it die. So the important thing for us was especially who, because a lot of times people in churches stay in their places, they open it up. Somebody once said, some churches' ideas of evangelism is to build a wonderful 50-gallon fish tank next to the ocean and wait for the fish to jump in. So we decided we really had to get outside the building. We do something called mission context analysis, which is an analysis. We do asset-based community development, which is actually getting out there and finding out what's going on. This is just our rapid iteration prototyping model that we developed, that we put together a while ago. We liked calling it RIP because about 90% of it ended in death. And we spent a lot of time trying to get rid of waste. I can't go into this because my time is over. Measuring what matters is our current thing that we're trying to do, moving from measuring butts in the pews to how people become engaged in the church. So I'm out of time. My son and I are writing an article on things that that startups can steal from churches. And so watch this space, copy down that URL, and look for the article. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.